Okay, so we're going to do some more world building, but this time I'm going to be doing this format in Google Docs, okay? And I didn't save the original, so I'm reformatting a little bit. It's going to be a bit different than the first time I did this, but I noticed that there were some people interested in getting, a copy of the document for their own reference, and I am more than okay to have that happen. So I'm going to build into part of what we already have laid out for the introduction in the piece, but let me show you what I've been working on here, guys, as I get into here. Now, it won't show you behind my camera, but underneath that's my outline for this document. So um, let's uh, let's get started in this video with what makes a world. Now, most of the things that we've already covered in the video last time was that there are many things that make up a world, and one of those main things is the main events of your world. Your world also must have some degree of natural occurrence, like weather, plants, and animals, along with other sentient civilizations. So it must have some sort of degree of nature and civilization, right? There's always a balance. That either there's no nature and it's predominantly overrun by tech or something, right? So the world will always have a balance, and figuring out yours for nature versus civilization, like mentioned, that is something we're actually going to discuss a little bit later on in this video. Okay, now with the religion, we already covered the idea that you usually worship a deity or a person. We talked about how we want some religions to be counter religions. We want variants in these religions. We don't want to just simply be run by like exacts, right? So like you can't have a perfect world where it's utopian because well, in the real world we have things like religions, we have things like racism, we have things that are issues, crime rates and stuff. I'm actually going to add in somewhere in here in the outline the next section of there, and that'll be laws, I guess, because we do need to talk about how to create laws and rules. Um, which that's a fun part because I actually learned how to do that in high school. So you can create your own charter of rights and freedoms, essentially, your own charter of independence. Having a monarchy in your world, to continue with the document, it just may be a great asset because in the real world we have royalty, we have the royal family, we have the Queen of England, we have the King of Ireland, we have this and that. These little areas have all of their own rulers, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a city, a state, a country, or a continent, they seem to have an influence. And even later on in the years, right? Like, so in late development of monarchies, for example, like our modern day, like the colonies of those monarchies are no longer influencing those countries, but originally gave birth to those countries. Like those monarchies were the reasons those countries got discovered and developed, right? So, like Canada and the States, we both were British colonies, like Australia and New Zealand. So, monarchies could be one of the biggest things that you could put into your world that actually may add a whole different level of depth and lore that you could just endlessly build upon. Um, so if you really want to build a series, having monarchies in mind is a good idea. Um, Consider these things, right? And I know it's a lot to handle, but with that being said, this forum is going to be written, pinned on the comment in the top comment, so you can copy this document, as I said earlier, use it for your own referencing. So considering that, we're going to be very organized compared to last time. This is only the introduction page that I'm reading to you guys right now. So what this world physically will appear like is very important. We want how many moons, how many suns, color of the sky, everything that has to do with that. We'll go into more depth on that later when we go into locations and map planning, because I want to explain how that can affect your locations, the different flora and fauna. We're going to literally work on how we can plan in our heads without any external mapping or anything, because sometimes you cannot get a map that you like, right? I've done map creations plenty of times, And honestly, I'll show you guys real quick um, the map I made for Altaria. And let's pull that up here. And this here is Altaria. Okay. And Altaria is just a small little island, right? In the grand scheme. I'll just shrink this down so I can show you guys that. So you won't always be able to build a map like that, right? Which is where, by the way, of Ash and Flames takes place. So I'm just gonna kind of shrink this down a little bit, and I'm actually gonna put this in the corner for you. But yeah, so of Ash and Flames is actually located in Altaria, right? So we don't always have a map for our books, right? Just because I do doesn't mean you're going to and you're going to want to. So up here is where we're going to base on, okay, guys? So, by the way, feel free to check out the book of Ash and Flames. It's 99 cents on the e-store through Amazon and other distributors. So feel free to check that out. Um, and while I'm on topic of that, giving myself a little shout out, I'm going to take down these maps in that book. Here is the cover of The Draconis Wars, my first debut novel. The 1-year anniversary is coming up on October 5th this year, and it is going to be on sale for participating retailers at $3.99 instead of the regular $6.99. So feel free to take a look at that. And we will now get back into what I was doing because I wanted to show you guys the map, and I forgot I had a couple of things set up in here, like so I just had to look at my program there for a moment. But anyways, back to this. In the world, we want to know how reliant the world is on technology, magic, how much does this stuff impact on the people living there, right? Like, is it like Skyrim, okay? For example. So like Skyrim, they have this innate fear of magic, but there's a clear presence of it. So they don't like to use magic for the most part. A lot of the people are afraid of it, so they don't want to use it because, well, oh my God, you could burn somebody, you could do this. It's so dangerous. So they don't have the understanding of it. It's still early in the understanding of magic because the most study they did was the College of Winterhold, you know? This all comes into how much role do you want to have magic or technology play, right? Is it going to be inherently present in your world, or is it going to be just an accent, right? Is it what makes the world seem what is worth reading about it? Is that what you want as your feature? Is the world just feels something completely unique? And that's something to consider. And if you are going to use magic, then does magic happen naturally by incantations, by actions? What kind of phrases would they use? You got to think of that, right? Are you going to use Latin as a derivative language? Are you going to write out your own? Are we going to do conlanging later in this, right? So, if you guys like that idea of learning how to like build your own spell words, derive from words, and create your own linguistics, feel free to put a comment somewhere on this video and let me know. Um, I'll do my best to read through all the comments as this channel does grow. I was actually amazed that there are 2 people interested in this kind of content where it talks about world building, how to go about it, not only the world but writing as a whole, right? Because I've already put up a few videos. You guys already kind of see what I'm doing. Um, I definitely am getting more comfortable talking in front of the camera. So when we look at the magic and technology, we want to create a list of ideas, right? So like, um, oh geez, I'm gonna have to insert a page break again. Whoops, I didn't mean to cause that. Where's my break? Come on, page break. There we go. I tell you, Google Docs is a little weird for me to use, guys. I apologize in advance. Backspace that. Now, if it's a magical world, right? Are your plants going to be sentient? Are they going to be able to speak or move on their own? These are things to consider, right? This is just to get the juices flowing for this part. Now, as you can tell, the rest is blank. Okay? I like to write this stuff out live with you guys when I'm on the video doing this, okay? So that might also be part of why I seem so choppy at times. I'm not actually shy or anything in a way. It's just I am also typing and talking at the same time. right? So that might be part of what's going on with that perception. Just as a fair mention to my audience that mentioned that to me in the comments. Anyway, we're going to go ahead. So, magic in your world can cause many things. You can have almost anything occur, in your world, so long as it follows a rule set that we actually built and can make it work consistently. Now, I know this may seem a little weird when I'm writing this out, but um, main keyword here, right, is consistently. So let's put a little, yeah, make it work consistently. Okay, so if in one chapter you have them summon the Sword of Excalibur from the pits of hell, and that's how your book works, what rules make that possible? What rules make that not possible? What circumstances make these things happen, right? We want to know. These are the things that your readers will want to know, and they will argue endlessly if you don't sort this out. Keep that in mind, right? If you get really big fan base going, they will argue endlessly until you actually provide an answer. So make sure that when you are doing things, you do it consistently. When you are writing a series using magic and developing a world, not all the time will you get a world that's like Dungeons and Dragons Feywilds and just never really be cohesively anything. So it doesn't work the same as the real world. And that's kind of the mess up part about that. But anyways, so not everything will be static. Is this world moving by the magic in it? Now, what does that mean when I ask that? That's a good question. Well, if the world is on an axis, right? Maybe I should pull up GIMP. I think I should explain this on GIMP. I'm not sure. But if you take, say, a world, you take, what can I use appropriately in my room around me right now? Here, maybe this will work. I'll use a speaker, okay? So, say this is your world, and it is sitting there, and it's doing its little rotation, okay? It's rotating away. Now, with magic, it may not rotate the same way. It may actually rotate backwards. It may rotate like that. How your world rotates may be impacted by the magic. Is it actually a level disc? Does it even have to rotate? Does it spin instead of rotate? Right? Like these are the things we're wondering. Does it actually just fly like a frisbee? Because I mean, Discworld did that, right? That was another great book that kind of showed a flat-esque world. Terry Pratchett's a genius for that stuff. Like that kind of feel of the discs in space that are traveling and doing things, and it's sentient. Um, Now, this may be weird, but when you look at magic, there are really interesting ways of using it. Now, why am I saying there's really interesting ways of using magic? Okay. Now, here's the thing. Magic doesn't have to abide by the laws of physics as we understand it. So, in the case of the Draconis Wars, so in the case of my debut novel, the Draconis Wars, I actually had Seth's castle, which is where they lived, place Seth lived in, was actually a living and sentient dragon. I know, that's really messed up, right? How come they're living inside of a dragon that's hollowed out? Well, the way that Seth's magic works, because he's a god, and this is his realm now, he actually carved out the dragon with his team and made sure that the dragon wouldn't die. but the dragon can't move because it doesn't have anything internally to move with. So it's just a big hollowed out dragon that's still like breathing and living off of just the magic presence inside of it. So that's what's keeping it alive, right? So the sentient dragon being held alive by the magic of the people living in it. So that's the case of the Draconis Wars, and I'm not spoiling a lot with that one because that's like it's not actually a thing that's mentioned in the book, but it's like it's kind of implied in the first bit of the book that this thing's alive, this place is alive, and yeah, so you can have living places, okay? It doesn't have to be dead. You don't have to always follow the normal, right? So living places, keep that in mind. You can make living places. Can, wow, my computer doesn't like this, can be made in your world for adding a unique and odd twist to the thematic. So, no matter what, you want to stay consistent with everything, right? So, if you've got living dragons that are freaking being used as buildings like me, okay, why? Explain it, or at least suggest why it might be. And even Kassira, which is the love interest of Flamos in the Draconis Wars, my first book, which was released for a year now. So if you haven't read it and this is giving you any spoilers, go read that. Go get it. The anniversary is only next week. Like, pick it up. It's going to be $3.99. I also have paperbacks that are coming out, and I think by then I should have the audiobooks out for Apple Books. Yeah. Anywho, back on topic before I go completely off the rocker here. What was I saying? So now we understand that magic in the worlds can have many different things. So here's going to be a bit of a thingy. Let's bullet list. Do we want a bullet list, or do we want? I think we're going to do a checklist here, guys. Okay, so is magic naturally flowing or forced? We also want to ask, does magic only occur with specific races? Now, here's the thing, okay? I'm not explaining this all in one spot, like, right? I'm not going to be just dumping this all into the magic in the worlds, right? I am going to be jumping a bit from here on out, because now we're going to start talking about things that's going to make me want to talk about things. So I'm going to be jumping around this document a lot, but it is all going to be laid out organized. Not necessarily that this video is going to be very organized. So races, okay? I want to talk about races, okay? So races are all about the living people in the world. In real life, we have variants of humans, such as Native Americans, East Indians, Asian Asian cultures. We also have white descent or Caucasian, right? So these are all things to consider when we're already looking at this, right? Uh, I think we're starting to see that there is actually a lot to the races already, right? Because from there, we have Native Americans, East Indians, Asian cultures, the white descents. Uh, we even have Russians. I don't even know what to call that, but we also have Scandinavian. Scan... Scandinavian? I think that's how it's spelled. No. It's, ah, stop. There we go. Okay, Scandinavian. There we go. We have Scandinavian. We've got like the Swiss. We've got Russian. We've got like British. Like we've got so many different sub variants of human in our own world, and such slight variances between our races, right? So you could really easily derive races based on that idea. Now, I know this is going to sound a little odd, but for example, um, are there presence of native, I'm going to put it this way, native uh, celebration and culture? Now, when you ask that, right, that's going to be pertaining to probably only two or three races if you're building races. So if you have native culture, what races is this most predominant in? Okay? These are the things we want to ask. What foods come from what races? Okay? What makes each race different? Do races have their own religions? Which now we're gonna jump again because my brain's sporadic. So we're gonna jump over to religion and faith now. Now, religion is a big thing in any world. It doesn't really matter what world you look at because, well, everybody has to have something that keeps a moral alignment in some way, shape, or form, whether that's real life or in fiction, right? Like a lot of us people that live in this world, we will pick a religion or a faith that we follow because it resonates with what we believe to be our moral code. So we'll jump to that. So here we go. Religion and faith in books have an important role to the story and lore. The reason this is simply because of just how many people will use that exact thing to keep them in their own moral alignment. Okay? So now, let's ask some things about religion, okay? Well, we're in this little thingy. I'm just kind of filling this out as I'm going, right? So, what causes worship of the deity? This is the first question you want to ask, okay? What makes worship of a deity the worship of that deity? Okay? Like, what made these people feel like they had to worship this person? Because, or this god? Because it could be a god, it could be a person, it could be a fucking fairy for all I know. Pardon my mouth. But good thing I'm not making content for kids. Anyways, so what causes you to worship that deity, right? So that's another thing. What race is the deity supposedly? Alright, so if it is a fae god, a demon's god, you know, is it a elf that ascended? Like, you take your pick, obviously, but these are just some ideas to jostle the brain juices a bit, right? You want to get those things flowing really well because, man, no matter how much you write, you're going to want to be fluid with creativity because if you're writing and you're writing series, you want to keep writing. You want to keep putting it out. You don't want to encounter writer's block. So this is probably the best thing I can think of to try to help other people with preventing writer's block, jostle up those juices, and getting that out of the system and into paper and on pages and then published. So, you know what? If we can get people published, that would be fantastic. If I can influence one other author to get published through all of these methods and help somebody get their shit finished, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the fact that you guys are commenting on the videos, yeah, that means a lot. So thanks for that. We're also now sitting at 169 subscribers. So you know what? Let's actually talk about legends for a moment. Because sometimes a legend, a lore, or a bit of lore, or a myth will talk about a god. So these kind of will probably have me talk jostle back and forth a bit. So what makes a legend, right? So we want to know what makes a legend. So let's break this down into a like this. We'll do a B A. Okay, so a person who made their presence predominantly known for a major event or instance within the world in the history of your designated plot point. B. A overcoming of a grandiose obstacle often will make a legend. Okay? Now, on top of this, oh my gosh, there we go. Okay, so overcoming a grandiose obstacle, right? So with these obstacles, there's all kinds of things. So it could be overcoming a challenge, right? A great challenge. Say slaying dragons, for example. Killing a demon king. Or even a vampire, maybe. Like a vampire hunter. Like, for example, a great example, actually, would be Van Helsing. That's actually one of the movies I grew up watching a lot of with my cousin. So that would fit perfectly in my mind. So with Van Helsing, he goes around killing a bunch of things. He is also part vampire, I believe, if I remember correctly. So that was the weird spin they put on that legend of he was legend though. That's the thing. That's what the story was telling was his legend, and that's why I want to mention that. How many centuries? There we go. Have passed since the event. Now, this is where we get in between. Oh, wait. What am I doing? So, this is where we get to is it now a legend or is it a myth? Now, what makes the difference, right? Well, a legend has been passed down for at least 5 human generations. That's tending to be the consistent thing in our world, at least, right? So I'm using that as the guide there. So now when we look at how long the legend's been passed on for at least 5 human generations, right? So what would make it now a myth? Now, when it occurs over 10 centuries back, it there will either be classed as folklore or a myth, depending on the choice of culture for your world. Now, isn't that a cool idea, right? Like, we have so much power when it comes to world building, guys, and I can endlessly talk about world building. So, like, I don't even know how long I've been on this. Like, how long have I been recording? It's 30 minutes now. We've been at this for 30 minutes, and I'm just blabbering and blabbering and blabbering about world building, even more world building. Like, guys, this is a huge topic, right? So I think I'm gonna break this into maybe a couple of parts here because I'm starting to realize these are going to be long videos. Holy crap. Yeah. Okay, so let's fill in some more of these spots before I end off this segment, and I will resume in another segment, and I'll post both at the same day. But this way, I can actually get everything I kind of have planned for just this into the videos. Um, Holy crap, guys! So this is my author's assistance, right? Like this is where I try to assist you guys. So I think that's a good start for legends, lore, and myths. Magic in the world. We've already talked about that a little bit. Let's talk about time flow, okay? So, is time linear? Okay. Now that seems like a very simple question, right? Linear time. Everything's linear in time. We only get older, right? No. Time can exist all at once. It does not have to be fluidly running in one direction, as it can overlap and overlay itself to create what we know as time paradoxes. Time paradoxes are one massive tool when featuring a science fiction based novel. And that I say that because, well, with that, we actually will see time travel, like the movies Back to the Future. We gotta go back, Marty. We gotta go back. Gotta go back to the future. There's something wrong with your kids. I remember that. Still iconic to this day. Anyway, sorry for that spoiler. Anyway, now that we're talking about like that, time paradoxes, we've touched on it. I'm going to move on a little bit. We're going to go into locations and map planning. Now, map planning is a little harder because, well, you can plan a map and never have one. So, this isn't actually mapping. This is not cartography. This is just planning the ideas, right? So, um, locations and maps are usually made in older times of the world. The maps usually will be hand drawn in fantasy worlds and technology reliant in the science fiction worlds. Now, with this being considered, races will also decide to live in areas that may be more favorable to them than the rest of the mapped area. Okay? So, how many oceans? Right? We want to know that. We want to know how they interact with continents and the choices of their economy due to the city or province power and population density Now, what is population density? So, if you don't know what that is, what is population density? Population density is only the concentration of the amount of civilians per unit of measurement in the area or segment of map you wish to measure and plot the larger areas out for their choice of interacting and why they use that location. Some cities will be highly populated due to high trades or even being a travel midpoint where innkeepers and taverns would be most prevalent. Now, we also want to consider are there fisheries by the oceans, lakes, and rivers, right? We want to know about that. We want to also know, is water a safe place, right? We want to know that because sometimes great creatures will live in the depths of the ocean, such as the kraken. All right, I think this is a pretty good way of explaining that in this case. Guys, I'm gonna have to pull up another video for this because I think, oh, we haven't done flora or fauna yet? Okay, well, we'll do that too. But this is a fairly long video, guys. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was making this big of a video. Um, I'm glad, like, I'm making this big video for you, but I didn't expect it to be, no, 40, 50, 60 minutes. Holy crap. Anywho, let's get back to this. So flora and fauna, right? So flora is a fancy science term for plant life. Okay? Now, fauna is the term for the animals. Okay? What plants are edible? We would need to know this in the idea of our world, considering that everyone has to eat. We tend to forget about that as writers. Seriously, when do you ever hear about somebody eating something in the freaking book? Sorry, I guess I'm expecting an answer, but I'm not gonna get one. I'm talking to the camera. But seriously, everybody has to eat. So, like, what can they eat? Fauna, okay? What ones are dangerous? Are there domesticated animals? Are there ancient creatures of myth or lore? Oh, here we go. See, now we're going back into lore and myths again, guys. So we're going to go back to lore and myths. Now, here's the thing. A creature can be considered a legendary or mythical thing, such as griffins, dwarves, or technically legendary in some worlds, right? Dwarves, like for example, Skyrim, dwarves are extinct. Okay, um, it could be a dragon, dragons, sure, wyverns, yeah. We could totally even do kraken, because like we were just talking about the kraken. Other grandiose monsters, just because like they're big monsters, they're legendary monsters, guys. Like, come on. Now something that may help with this specific part is where did this creature reside? Is it from our world in the story or another, right? These are the things we got to consider. But I'm going to cut this video here and we're going to add a few more pieces to talk about. I might actually add a little bit of sub pieces to talk about in these topics, guys. The link will be in your description, or not the description, but the pinned comment. Just because my description usually has my Stripe payment donation link. And if you guys do feel the need to express a little more interactivity than what I have been um, dealing with on YouTube, and you guys want to support my channel, support what I'm doing, hit that Stripe donation link in my description. Um, every bit helps, every bit's appreciated. We're 40 minutes in, so I don't want to keep you guys on this one forever. I'm going to keep working on the sheet a bit and explore more options of breaking this down because I want to break down everything I can in one document for you guys to refer to. And that's the grand scheme of what these videos now is doing for this world building aspect. I'm going to touch a lot on this, and I want to make sure that when I do this, you guys will be able to cohesively understand whatever I have in here and everything that I think of with how I build my worlds and what questions I'm asking, how I build it, where I'm putting it, what races do what, how certain myths impact certain people, how certain iron will be certain races and interact with certain religions, and certain religions will hate on certain races. We'll talk about all of these great relationships and the geography and everything as we build through. But this is just to get the juices going, and I will wind up showing you how all this stuff that I'm working on and this stuff on this sheet there, yeah, this sheet, okay, this sheet is actually going to have a separate sheet to come with it when I'm done. And the separate sheet is going to help you guys just plan on building your world, taking your notes, filling out what you need to fill out. I'm going to do a fill in the blanks kind of approach, right? I'm going to give you world blank, right? And then it's going to be like magic, rule, must, must not, must this, must,